On this special edition of Litter Media Live, we're going to be focusing on Foothold International. They have a special event coming up on October 5th. Details in just a moment with Brad and Cherie Catron. We'll be with them in just a moment, right after this, from our friends at Kingston National Bank.
Wherever you are there for a reason. You shouldn't have to make a trip to the branch just to deposit a check. Skip the trip and use our mobile app to easily and securely deposit checks from your phone. Day or night, wherever you are, or whatever you're doing. Download the Kingston National Bank mobility app today.
The third annual Wanderlust Gala is coming up October 5th, and that will be at the Chillicothe Country Club this year. Yep. And it's a fundraiser to help the mission that you are on in Kenya, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. Let's talk briefly about the event, okay. but then I want to get into the mission that you're on, and then we'll go back and visit more details about the event. So, first of all, what is this purpose for?
Brad, you're going to talk about that, right?
The purpose of the Wanderlust Gala is
slide that microphone to the right a little bit.
The purpose of the Wanderlust Gala is for us to create, number one, awareness, and also to raise funds to help prevent trafficking of young women in Kenya, East Africa, in the area where we work.
Yeah, and this is very common, isn't it?
Yes.
Trafficking.
Yes.
And it's something that we know some about here in America, but over there it's just old hat, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I could speak to that too, is that, trafficking is worldwide. It happens right in our community, and it is often hidden in plain sight, right? Mm-hmm. And same thing is in Kenya, but it's a different cultural, it happens a little differently. Mm-hmm. And there's lots of things we can do that are not very expensive to prevent it. Yeah. That's what's exciting.
So what we're doing is raising funds for this purpose. Mm-hmm. You've seen this purpose over there and in what you do on a regular basis with your mission.
Right.
Yeah. The event itself is October 5th. Mm-hmm. And what times are we looking at?
So it's a Saturday. This year, we've moved it from Thursday to Saturday, and it's going to be from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Okay.
So
3-hour event, bring as much money as you have, and have at it, huh?
And make sure you come with like an appetite, right? Because there'll be some great food
there is
served.
Food, isn't there?
Yeah. Be sit-down dinner this time instead of a buffet.
And there'll be a dessert run, too, so there's some tasty handcrafted desserts that will be up for auction, and that will be really good.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun too.
And we mentioned this is the third event for this purpose, and we have learned some things along the way, so that's brought on the changes for this year.
Yeah, for sure.
People will still be able to do things online as far as donations, correct?
Exactly. Right. A lot of people, if the time and date doesn't work for you, you can still participate online. There's the online portion of the auction is there. There's raffle tickets as well. We'll be drawing a winner that night, so you don't have to be present. I hate to say that because I want people to come, but you don't have to be present to be a winner of those two. We have a raffle for a cruise, which is a really it's a totally flexible cruise package, and no catch. Mm-hmm. And then we have the OSU versus Michigan 2 seats to that game. We're also raffling off. So both of those things you can buy before, leading right up to the gala too. So.
Those are your big prizes for this event. Like I say, we'll get into more details about the event here shortly, but I want people to understand what and who Foothold International is. I first learned about you with the water can walk that you started with, 12 years ago, something like that?
Yeah.
That's right.
And the water filtration systems that you were helping people to do. Are you still doing that? Or have you achieved what your goal was?
Well, that project is kind of on hold at the moment.
But our water projects in general have evolved.
Yeah, right.
And so we're still doing water projects, but we're doing them, I would say, more case by case through the community.
Right.
So they don't, it's not like a one size cookie cutter type of approach. And Brad, you can talk a little bit about how we've come alongside clinics, dispensaries, the local,
because in the past we focused on water filtration, and then we kind of evolved. We had the opportunity to do 2 boreholes to help communities have fresh water through those. But then we found some very simple ways that we can have really huge impact. So, for instance, like a rural medical dispensary, for whatever reason, the water infrastructure has broken down. You know, the valves, the piping, things have broken down. Well, when you're running a dispensary on a $6 medical budget, you don't have money for medications. You don't have money to replace the water infrastructure. So if for a very small amount of funds, we can come in and bring in some local plumbers and some local supplies. It's amazing what you can do to get that water back up and running, to provide proper water sanitation and hygiene, and get a dispensary back up online and serving the public.
I know in previous visits we've talked about the poor conditions that the folks over there have, and the sickness, the illness that comes from the water they drink, and then there's the hygiene problems that they have. But being able to provide clean water for them, they don't have to walk, 5 to 6 miles to get water from this creek or river that is just filled with rust water and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like the one dispensary that we did earlier in the year, they had to close down. They couldn't do deliveries there because they had no water for proper sanitation in the delivery room. And so if we can come along and replace a kilometer of water pipe to get that back online, you've made a huge impact with not a lot of investment.
Yeah, it's a big return on a
It
small
is.
investment.
It is. It's huge.
Really,
It's
I think
huge.
it's one of the things that's exciting, is that we can make such an impact. And a lot of times we'll find, like the way we operate is we look for these gaps, right? Where there's resources there, there's people there, there's leadership, there's servant leaders, and they just have one little piece missing. And oftentimes it's pretty inexpensive for us to meet that need, so that we're lifting them up, we're giving them, like, helping to bridge that gap. For example, we did a medical clinic, and through that clinic, we had lots of organizations who came together, but we were the ones that injected the funds that made it possible for all, but we weren't alone, right? So we kind of were the catalyst. And so we had Red Cross, World Vision. We have a list of about 12 different agencies who came together because we had an injection of funds. We brought medication. And so we look for those opportunities. And while we were there, they did lots of screening. And so the health department gathered lots of data that they're going back and evaluating. But one of the things they found, there was about 5 or 6 people they found who had cataracts and were eligible for cataract surgery. And then within about 30-minute drive, there is a clinic that's a free clinic that just opened up. Even still, so they could go there now and get free surgery, but they can't afford the transportation. So transportation, that situation costs about $8 round trip. I mean, how could we not do that, right? We look for those opportunities where there's just a gap and life-changing, something like that. So that takes being there.
I know a lot of folks who go to church hear missionaries come and talk about the conditions or wherever, and building schools and building facilities, like medical facilities like you were talking about. One of the things that we've always heard is knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And what you have done over the years is providing them a way to make soap, to make them clean and able to attend school. And that has helped the girls learn and not just be, like you say, we're going to get around to the trafficking, but their first 12 years of life, they now can continue in knowledge. You talked last year at your fundraiser about a lady who is taking nursing, and she is now, we're here, is a success story, right?
Oh, she's a rock star for us. It's really funny. She works for us, and we went to, very humble life, lived in a very rural place, very, very little exposure to the outside world. And as she's worked with us, the opportunities, we've been able to see her blossom. We've been able to see more and more of her strengths. And so we went to visit the hospital this last time in Kenya, and they said, oh, she's famous amongst the hospital staff because she's so connected. She has so many leadership skills, and the community that she's coming from, they respect her so much because she's the voice of that education. And so she's been such a key person, right? That person of peace, right?
Yeah.
An influence within her community. And we're just grateful that she works with us.
And I know Brad has told us in an interview about the men in that territory. They don't like to work, and they just make the women do everything.
Yeah.
And a lot of that starts with basically them kind of becoming slaves to the men in that aspect.
Yeah.
But as these girls gain knowledge and they're able to attend because you've taught them how to make hygiene products for women, even making soap, they've now got some income. And I'm telling their story. I should let you tell it.
But I like hearing you tell it.
as these girls would approach teen years, they suddenly became property of someone, right?
Yes.
It's not like
Very
what
common.
we understand here is, boyfriend, girlfriend, they get together and start a relationship. It's a much different relationship in that society.
Definitely. And speaking of that, like when the teen pregnancy issue is often a situation of assault or child marriage. So it's not the same issue that we often think about here in the United States. That's very different. Yes, for sure.
And this leads to the trafficking. It's a shame, but we've had this kind of thing since the beginning of time, I think, in many respects. Tell us what you can about this so that people viewing will be able to understand why this is important for you.
So as far as what happens there, right? We know that that's what you're asking me, right? Like what? Okay. So a lot of times, around the age of puberty, girls can be married off to often an older man. And so they have what they call a dowry, but it's a reverse dowry. So, but it's really a bride price. That's a better word for it. So oftentimes an older man who collects multiple wives will offer a family a large amount of money. And it can be even more than what it would cost to send her to school.
Or cattle.
Yeah, it can be cattle too. Yeah. And so for a family that's barely surviving, has many children to feed, being offered that kind of money, that's I can't even judge a mom who may have to make that difficult choice when her other children might be starving otherwise. And when we do see families who send their children to school in those communities, I'm just in all of them. Like I don't even know really the depth of sacrifice and faith it takes to send their daughters to school when they're forgoing that bride price. Other girls will be house help, which is another form of trafficking. It may not be sexual assault trafficking, but it oftentimes follows, right? House girls, when girls are orphaned, which is, because of HIV, there's a lot of young women who've been orphaned. They'll go live with a family member who takes them in, but really they're like indentured servants. And then they often don't stay in school because their domestic labor is very valuable in a society that hand washes their clothes and has to, trek to fetch water. I mean, it's a hard work. And so these young women have strong backs and they know how to carry that water and they're very attractive for multiple reasons, right? And so we see both of those things going on quite a bit. And again, it takes so much sacrifice, so much faith for parents to make that commitment to believe that she, put that in, not knowing how they're going to feed their children, maybe even going into debt, right? It's an incredibly humbling thing to see these families do.
You first went to Kenya, 20 years ago?
Yeah, it was Brad's first trip.
2004, June of 2004.
Yeah. And having known that now, when you first caught on to this, seeing it happen, what went through your mind, and are you surprised at where you are today and what you've been able to accomplish to help change that?
I saw these needs when on my first trip. I participated in a medical campaign, and it was a way of serving the community. And as people came in, the group we were with, we shared the gospel with the people when they came in. And as we were sharing the gospel with them, though, we were changing their hearts, we were changing their lives that way. But then there was something missing, and then Cherie and I met, and then we got married, and then we continued on with that, working in that way. And then it was Cherie that realized that Yeah, we're bringing in the gospel, which is changing lives, but people are staying in their poverty. People are still sick. People have no jobs. People have no clean water or anything like that. And so then she said, there's time for a change. And I'm like, okay, let's hear it. And there it went.
I was thinking when you asked that question, I think one of the things I saw in you and I still hear in you is anger. Like when you saw women being exploited, when you heard these stories, you were really mad. And I think for me, because we raised 3 boys, it's strange, but I had some compassion for the young men, and I was able to see what they were doing was also a result of their own trauma. And so if we can rehabilitate those young men, and so that they become sensitized and they're not abusing, they're not exploiting women, then that's another level of prevention. And so I'm certainly not letting them off the hook.
Right.
But we have seen more and more opportunities to work with the young men, to help them to be educated, to encourage them to work and support their families.
And it's been amazing too that as we have empowered women in the community, it's amazing to see the change that comes along in the men.
Yeah.
And we're not a part of that. We're only a small part of that change. By empowering the women comes the change in the men. And then the men become interested, and it's like, okay, well, I've seen these changes and these are good. You know, it used to be this way and now she's this way and now it's good. And then they start thinking a little differently too. So we're not telling them how. It's just the change evolves. It evolves.
Kind of letting the Holy Spirit take over.
Yeah.
In a way.
Let them see.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and that was something I was very concerned about. You know, we often see that dynamic when you see a woman empowered, especially if she's in a relationship that's oppressive, that oftentimes a husband's not real happy about that. And so we were concerned about that, but in this particular community, the culture there, the dynamic was unexpected. And the men were leaning in saying, how do I start my group? How do I do what they're doing?
Yeah.
And one of the things in that particular community, that culture, is the men they grow up together. They're more like women, like culturally, as far as the women's groups. So those men's groups have done really well because those men are very vulnerable with each other in a way that we often don't see in other cultures or see here. They're very comfortable with each other. They trust each other in a way. Physically, they're very affectionate towards each other. And so it was surprising how we saw that, I didn't expect men to be, again, as relational and intimate and trusting each other. That was really, really amazing.
We just don't know until we tap into it.
Absolutely.
And learn.
Yeah.
I wanted people to watching and listening to hear the why.
Yeah.
Because the why is very important to a fundraiser. And in this particular fundraiser, the goals you have set will be able to do what?
Yeah, so the first goal will be, so one of the things I always say when prevention of trafficking, it's a holistic approach that we take. So we have to do several things. If we just do one thing and we miss all the other components, we're not really preventing what we want to prevent. So the first goal is to, we reach that one. It's at, 9,000? When we get to the 9,000 mark, we will be able to provide 5 young people. We have 4 girls and 1 boy. So we do help boys too. We'll be able to pay their tuition for a year. And that includes their room, boarding, and all that. Then our next goal, another $1,500, we'll be able to provide another community medical clinic. Right. And so there's a lot of follow-up to do. We've worked with the local health department there. There's lots of things we're going to expand and do for the next one. And then the next step after that is to provide, now this is a big step. It's going to cost about $7,000, but we've identified a school that has really targeted girls. They went from 10% of their girls graduating high school to 90% boys. And in 1 year, they went into the community. They earned their trust. They had these Braza community meetings, and they explained why girls needed to go to school. The next year, it was 50-50. Yeah. We went from 90% boys, 10% girls to 50-50 in 1 year. So we went to them. We said, how can we help you? How can we support you? We love what you're doing, and we love how you're doing it. And they said, well, our kids come here and they're hungry. We keep our tuition so low so they can afford it. And so we're not able to provide food. And they said many times children pass out from hunger. And that certainly affects so many things, but one of those things is also learning, right? And so we told them from there that we would make a commitment to raise funds. We couldn't promise, but the next goal is to raise funds to be able to provide 500 children lunches for the school year.
Very nice.
Yeah, so that comes to about $1.12 a student per month.
This is an amazing thing. And when people go to fundraisers, they want the goodies. They want to be able to do the silent auctions and all that kind of stuff and want to be able to help. But when you hear this story, and I will tell you, whenever I have been around when this story has been told, there's just jaw-dropping moments amongst the audience that had no idea that this is what you're seeing when you go on your mission trips.
Yeah.
And they just want to jump in and help. So that's why it's important to hear everything we've been talking about. All the other stuff is fun and frivolity, but this is a mission that's helping some people. I'm sure it's several thousand miles away, but they're God's people too.
Yeah, that's right.
And Dan, one of the kind of things that I've just the conclusion at the end of the day is that boreholes require mechanical things. They require money. They require upkeep. They require maintenance. All these other things, these infrastructures need constant attention. But education is universal. And education is something that you cannot take away from someone. You can keep them from it, but once they've got it, you can't take it away. And that, in providing that education and making certain that these girls at least finish high school, and having that opportunity, then great things come out of that. And no one can take that away from them.
Yeah.
None. So.
Well, you've heard the sales pitch. Now, how do we get involved?
Yeah. Oh, well, there's so many ways. Well, one of the ways is volunteering. We'll have some new things we're going to be announcing actually next week that will allow more volunteers to be a part of our work. So we are going to have a local footprint, doing more local pieces, bringing people into our work through both benefiting our local community, education, mental health, but also economy, and connecting those things. So I'm being kind of vague right now because I want to announce it next week. But so there's those things are coming, and we do have wonderful volunteers that will be volunteering at the gala. And so there's always room for that, for people to do that. Certainly donating. The other thing we absolutely love, probably my favorite thing is for people to go with us, to see it for themselves. And we have lots of history and experience bringing people over safely and making that be a really positive, meaningful experience. So that's the thing I love to see. I know it doesn't happen as often. We had 2 medical students who came this summer, and it was just an absolute, just wonderful. They were great. So those are ways. I think, anything I'm missing, Brad? Ways people can get involved?
Well, they can certainly donate.
Yeah, I did mention that.
How do we get tickets?
Yeah.
Well, the tickets, there's a QR code, right, that we're putting out there. So you can scan the QR code and you can get tickets online. And you can also email Brad or message us if you have any trouble with that. We can do that for you if you have any difficulty.
And aside from just straight donating, we're having a live auction also for this during the gala. And so there's opportunities for people to bid on various items. There's various packages, like we have a downtown date night, which is probably going to become one of our best items for auction. It is a night at the Carlisle, and then that includes a $200 gift certificate at the Rec Room. Have you heard of that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Where you can smash things.
Yeah. We've got a multitude of gift cards that go along with that bundle too.
Right. Yeah.
And then there's a commemorative slate from the roof.
Commemorative slate from the Carlisle building, which was etched. Yeah. So that is included in there, and so that's an incredible package. And so you can go to Old Canal Smokehouse that evening, and then go to the Coop in the morning.
And also
you can pick up some
Parkside
ice cream while you're downtown,
those are all-
and go to the rec room. And any frustration you may have, you can take it out on a TV or a stove.
And you won't even need a car.
True.
walk
That's
to all that stuff.
exactly all on foot. Is it okay if I share? We had an update this morning.
Oh,
I don't know if we have time for that, but we received some pictures, some videos from Jennifer, who works for us, and one of our menstrual pad projects. So we have women who make those pads. So the value added is that we use local labor, so giving back into the community. But we met with the high school when we were there this last trip, and so the new thing we've started is the high school students are making pads.
Really?
Yes, and they're designing. They're giving us new designs. They're working with a technical school that's just next door, so they're sewing them. They're very excited. We're excited to work with them, and we're going to hire them to make so we can increase our production. So having additional labor, and then it cuts our costs down. So when we went to the school and we talked with them, and they asked for a lot of pads that we at that moment didn't have at our disposal, they said, "Don't just give them to us. Give us the materials. Give us the knowledge. Let us make them."
Yeah.
And that's really a lot of what we do. So we've got that as an update. So we just got pictures, videos this morning of the girls sewing at the high school, and then we also have videos of our adult literacy.
Right.
So we have an adult school that we've started since it's been about a month.
Yeah.
And so it is up and going. We're so excited. Many Maasai men and women who have never been to school, just never been into a classroom. And others dropped out right before high school. Yeah. And so we're working with both of those groups, and we're also targeting those young men because if we bring education to them, they're much less likely to be the ones that we're dealing with, right? The ones that are harming women and children. And so we've seen that over and over again. The education for them is also really important. So we are so excited to see that up and going, and just the classroom was full.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
So I'm sure that we'll see some of these videos and photos at the Wanderlust Gala.
Yeah, true.
So make sure that you're there for that.
Yeah.
If you want to participate, just go to Foothold International. If you go to the Facebook page, just search Foothold International, and it'll take you right to where you need to
And
go.
our website too. So if you go to footholdinternational.org, there's links on our website too that can take you to all these.
Yep.
And forgive me, you've got a live auction. You have a live auctioneer. Dan DeGarmo is going to be there to make sure that your pockets are empty at the end of the night.
Yeah.
Yeah, you will have our Double Dan duo, right? You will be there as well.
Well, he's Double D's auction house, and I'm the third wheel there, I guess. Respect.
The third D.
But looking forward to participating in that again a week from this Saturday. That's October 5th, 6 to 9 p.m. Make sure you get your tickets.
Yep.
Guys, thank you so much for coming in
Thank
today.
you.
Cherie and Brad Catron. They're good folks and doing good things. Thanks for watching this edition of Litter Media Live.